Tiraza adjusted the lapel of her immaculate cream-colored blazer, catching her reflection in the glass facade of the New Zion Community Center. She looked every bit the Proverbs 31 woman, if Proverbs 31 had been written by a corporate headhunter with a 7-figure salary and a relentless 5-year plan. At 32, Tiraza was the lead architect for the city's most prestigious Christian development firm. She was a woman of faith, certainly. She tithed to the penny, led the singles ministry, and had a prayer journal color-coded by topic. But the topic that consumed the most ink, that kept her awake at night, that drove her every Sunday morning wardrobe choice, was the husband ***. She had a list, a very specific, non-negotiable list. He had to be a king. He needed spiritual stature that commanded respect when he walked into a room, financial literacy, which she interpreted as wealth, a presence that turned heads, a resume that impressed. He needed to be polished, prestigious, and in a word, finished. No projects, no potential, no diamonds in the rough. She checked her watch, a delicate gold Cartier piece that cost more than most people's annual rent, and cursed under her breath, late for the site inspection. As she hurried toward the entrance, heels clicking with military precision, she didn't notice the man kneeling near the hedgerow. His hands were buried deep in muddy soil, wrestling with a stubborn irrigation pipe. "Excuse me," Tiraza barked, stepping around a pile of mulch with visible disgust. "You're blocking the walkway. Clients are arriving in 10 minutes. Can we get this mess cleared?" The man looked up. He was broad-shouldered, wearing a faded grey t-shirt stained with sweat and earth. His boots were caked in mud. He wiped a dirty hand on his jeans and offered a polite, quiet smile. "Apologies, ma'am, just fixing a leak in the main line. If I don't catch it now, it'll flood the atrium foundation by morning." Tiraza wrinkled her nose as if she'd smelled something rotten. "Well, do it somewhere less visible ***, or quicker. I don't want board members seeing a plumbing disaster the moment they walk in. This is a prestige project." "Yes, ma'am," the man said, his voice deep and steady, lacking any hint of offense. Tiraza brushed past him, her heels clicking on the pavement, thinking only of how the mud might splash her $800 shoes. She didn't ask his name. She didn't look him in the eye. To her, he was just part of the scenery, background noise in the movie of her successful life. Invisible. The board meeting went flawlessly. Tiraza presented the blueprints for Phase 2 with the confidence of a queen addressing her court. Afterward, as she packed her portfolio, a man approached her. Adoniram. He was new to the church board, a venture capitalist who had recently relocated from the coast. He wore a suit Tiraza recognized from a Tom Ford catalog she couldn't afford, even on her salary. He was handsome, articulate, and when he smiled, he looked like he belonged on the cover of Forbes Kingdom Edition. "That was an inspired presentation, Tiraza," Adoniram said, his voice smooth as aged bourbon. "Truly, you have a gift for structure." "Thank you, Adoniram," she replied, lowering her lashes slightly, playing the demure card she'd practiced in the mirror. "I just try to build what God downloads to me." "I'd love to hear more about your vision," he said, checking his phone, the latest iPhone naturally. "Perhaps over dinner. I know a place downtown that requires a reservation 3 months in advance, but I have some pull." Tiraza's heart hammered. This was it. This was the list incarnate. Wealthy, check. Influential, check. Interested in her, check. "I would be honored," she said, trying to keep the desperation out of her voice. As they walked out together, they passed the muddy patch near the entrance. The irrigation hole was filled in, the mulch perfectly spread, the walkway swept clean. The man in the grey t-shirt was loading a shovel into an old, dented pickup truck in the parking lot. Adoniram scoffed, gesturing toward the truck with his Mercedes key fob. "It's amazing they let vehicles like that park in the front lot. Takes away from the excellence of the ministry, doesn't it?" He shook his head. "We serve a God of gold, not rust." Tiraza laughed, a little too loudly, a little too eagerly. "Absolutely, excellence in all things." She didn't see the man in the truck pause. She didn't see him look at them, his eyes filled not with anger, but with a profound, sad wisdom. She didn't see him shake his head slowly, as if watching a car crash in slow motion. Over the next 6 weeks, Tiraza's life felt like a fairy tale written by a prosperity gospel preacher. Adoniram was everything she had prayed for, or so she thought. He quoted scripture over champagne brunches. He bought her expensive gifts with casual indifference. They looked magnificent together walking into Sunday service, turning heads like a power couple in a Christian magazine spread. But there was a man she kept running into, the man from the mud. His name, she eventually learned from a site manifest, was Benaiah. He wasn't just a plumber, he seemed to do everything. One day he was fixing electrical wiring. The next he was resodding the prayer garden. He was always there, always working, always dirty. And somehow always watching her with those knowing eyes. One Tuesday, Tiraza was standing over a blueprint table on the construction site, stressed beyond measure. There was a critical discrepancy in the load-bearing wall calculations for the new sanctuary. Her hands were shaking. This could delay the entire project, ruin her reputation. "If you move that pillar," a deep voice said from behind her, "the roof tension will snap the trusses in a high wind." Tiraza spun around. It was Benaiah. He was holding a thermos and a sandwich wrapped in foil, looking like he'd just come from digging a trench. "Excuse me," Tiraza snapped, the stress of the project and her desperation to impress Adoniram shortening her fuse to nothing. Benaiah pointed with a calloused finger at the blueprints. "You're designing for aesthetic, but the soil density here is clay-heavy. If you shift that pillar left, the foundation shifts. You need to *reinforce the footing, not move the pillar." Tiraza stared at him, incredulous. "And you know this how? Did you get a structural engineering degree between digging ditches and mowing the lawn?" Benaiah didn't flinch. His voice remained calm, almost gentle. "Wisdom builds the house, ma'am. Understanding establishes it. I've worked this soil for 10 years. I know what it can hold." "Listen to me, Benaiah," Tiraza said, stepping close to him, using her height, aided by 4-inch heels, to try and intimidate him. "I have a master's degree from one of the top architectural programs in the country. You are here to keep the grass green and the toilets flushing. Do not presume to tell me how to build a cathedral. Stay in your lane." Benaiah looked at her for a long moment. The silence was uncomfortable, charged with something Tiraza couldn't name. "I only offer what I see, Tiraza." His use of her first name, gentle but firm, caught her off guard. "Pride comes before a fall. I don't want to see you, or this building, fall." "I am not falling," she hissed, her voice dripping with venom. "I am ascending. Now please, get back to work." Benaiah nodded slowly, "As you wish." That evening, Tiraza told Adoniram about the encounter over omakase sushi at a restaurant where the wait list was 6 months long. "The nerve," Adoniram laughed, wiping soy sauce from his lip with a linen napkin. "A laborer trying to correct an architect. You should have fired him on the spot. In fact, remind me to speak to the contracting agency. We need high-level people, not know-it-alls with dirt under their fingernails." "Exactly," Tiraza said, sipping her imported tea. But somewhere deep in her spirit, a small alarm bell was ringing. She ignored it. She silenced it. She crushed it. The dedication ceremony for the new Zion Center was scheduled for a Sunday in November. It was to be the crowning achievement of Tiraza's career, and she hoped, prayed, expected it to be the day Adoniram would propose. She had already picked out her ring style, had already imagined the engagement photos, had already planned the wedding at that estate venue she'd been saving on Instagram. 3 days before the opening, a massive storm rolled into the city. The sky turned the color of a bruise. Wind howled through the construction site, rattling scaffolding, making the glass walls scream. Then the rain came, sheets of it torrential. Tiraza was in her office, finalizing seating arrangements, when her phone rang. It was the site foreman. "Tiraza, get down here now." She drove through the blinding rain, hands gripping the steering wheel until her knuckles turned white. When she arrived, the scene was chaos. The south wall of the sanctuary, the very wall Benaiah had warned her about, had developed a hairline fracture, rapidly expanding. The heavy clay soil, saturated by rain, had shifted exactly as he said it would. The pillar she had insisted on moving was buckling. Water flooded the foundation, turning the construction site into a swamp. Into mud. The same mud she had sneered at, the same mud she had called a mess, the same mud she had demanded be cleared from her prestige project. Now it was everywhere. "It's going to collapse," the foreman shouted over the wind. "We don't have the equipment on site, we're talking hours." The workers looked at her. "No," Tiraza screamed. "No, no, no." She stood frozen in the deluge, rain soaking through her designer coat, plastering her hair to her face. If this wall fell, the lawsuit would bankrupt her firm. The shame would be unbearable. She pulled out her phone with shaking hands and called Adoniram. "Adoniram," she gasped, her voice breaking. "It's a disaster. The wall is failing. I need you to come down here right now ***. You know the city council. You can help me manage the inspectors. Maybe pull some strings for emergency crews. Please, I need you." Silence. 3 seconds of silence. Adoniram, are you there? Please, I'm begging you. Then his voice came through, cool, detached, clinical. Tiraza, look, that sounds like a liability nightmare. She could hear music in the background, laughter, crystal glasses clinking. I'm actually at a gala with the district superintendent right now, he continued, his tone as casual as if they were discussing the weather. I can't be associated with a structural failure. It looks bad for my portfolio, bad for my brand, you understand. What? Tiraza's voice came out as a wounded animal sound. I'm your girlfriend, I need you, please. We never made it official, Tiraza, Adoniram said, his voice dropping an octave, taking on the cold, measured tone of a businessman closing a deal. And frankly, if you messed up the build, that reflects on your competence, not mine. It's unfortunate. I think it's best we take a step back. Another pause, she could hear him breathing. I have to go, he said. The senator just arrived. Click. The line went dead. Tiraza dropped the phone into a puddle. It disappeared beneath brown water. She fell to her knees in the mud, the same mud she had despised Benaiah for walking in. She wept, great, gasping sobs that tore from her chest, mixing with the rain. She was alone. The king she had chased was a coward in a custom suit. She realized something that broke her completely. She had spent her entire life building monuments to herself and calling them ministries. Clear the area, the foreman yelled to the crew. It's coming down, everybody back. Tiraza looked up at the buckling wall. Everything she had built, everything she had worked for, her name, her reputation. Falling. She closed her eyes. Pride comes before a fall. 5 seconds. 10 seconds. Total loss. God please, I can't lose. No. A voice roared through the storm. Tiraza's eyes snapped open. Through the rain, headlights cut through the darkness like twin pillars of fire. A massive yellow excavator roared into the site, water spraying from its treads. Benaiah was in the cab. He drove straight toward the buckling wall, swung the boom arm around, using the massive bucket to brace the failing pillar, pressing thousands of pounds of force against the shifting earth. He jumped out, leaving the engine running, and ran to his truck for steel beams and welding equipment. Don't just stand there, Benaiah yelled at the foreman. Get the jacks, we reinforce now. For the next 6 hours, Tiraza watched. Benaiah directed 20 men through the storm, welded steel in the pouring rain, sparks flying from the torch, illuminating his face in flashes of orange and white, waded waist-deep into the mud to shore up the concrete. He didn't look like a gardener anymore. By 4:00 a.m., the rain stopped. The wall held. The building was saved. Benaiah, covered head to toe in grease and mud, walked over to where Tiraza was shivering. He took off his heavy canvas jacket and wrapped it around her shoulders. It smelled of diesel and hard work. Go home, Tiraza, he said softly. It's safe now. 2 days later, Tiraza was summoned to an emergency church board meeting. She expected to be fired. She walked into the conference room with her head down, clutching her Bible. The board members were there. Adoniram was there looking smug, arms crossed. And at the head of the table sat the senior pastor. Next to him sat Benaiah. But Benaiah wasn't wearing his grey t-shirt. He was wearing a crisp button-down shirt, clean, sharp, authoritative. Take a seat, Tiraza, the pastor said quietly. She sat. Adoniram spoke up first. Pastor. Obviously, this near disaster proves that Tiraza wasn't ready for this project, as I was telling her the other night. Be silent, Adoniram. Benaiah's voice wasn't loud, but it slammed the room shut. Adoniram's mouth snapped closed, his face turned red. The pastor smiled, a knowing, sad smile. Tiraza, he said, I believe you know Benaiah. Pause. But I don't think you know who Benaiah is ***. Tiraza looked at the man she had insulted, dismissed, degraded ***. He works the grounds, she whispered. Benaiah owns the construction company. Her ears rang, the room tilted. He owns the landscaping firm, the electrical firm, the masonry supply group. He is the largest donor to this church ***. He chooses to work the grounds personally because he loves the work. because he wants to ensure God's house is built with integrity, not just low bids. The man she had treated like a servant was effectively her boss's boss's boss. Benaiah saved the building, the pastor continued softly, and he has paid for the repairs $87,000 out of his own pocket. Benaiah looked at Tiraza. His eyes were kind, but they pierced her. Then he turned to Adoniram. Adoniram. The man in the expensive suit flinched. You abandoned a sister in her time of need to save your reputation. You treated her like a business liability instead of a human being. Pause. You are removed from this board effective immediately. Silence. God does not need cowards in leadership. Adoniram sputtered, his face turning purple. You can't, I'm a major ***, my donations. Benaiah didn't move, didn't blink. Leave. Adoniram stood, shaking with rage and humiliation, and stormed out, slamming the door behind him. The sound echoed. Then silence. Then Benaiah turned to Tiraza. His expression softened. Tiraza, he said, you are a brilliant architect. Pause. But your foundation is flawed. After the meeting, Benaiah asked Tiraza to walk with him. They went to the sanctuary, now stable, now beautiful, now standing because of him. Why didn't you tell me? Tiraza asked, her voice trembling. Why did you let me treat you like that? Benaiah stopped and turned to her. Because you were looking for a costume, not a character. He let the words settle. If I had told you I was a multimillionaire, you would have respected my wallet, but you still would have despised the man in the mud. He opened his Bible, worn, marked up, coffee-stained, lived in. James chapter 2, Benaiah read gently. My brothers and sisters, believers in our glorious Lord Jesus Christ, must not show favoritism. Suppose a man comes into your meeting wearing a gold ring and fine clothes, and a poor man in filthy old clothes also comes in. If you show special attention to the man wearing fine clothes and say, here's a good seat for you, but say to the poor man, you stand there, or sit on the floor by my feet, have you not discriminated among yourselves and become judges with evil thoughts? Tiraza began to cry. The scripture cut her. I wanted a king, she whispered. You wanted a Saul, Benaiah corrected her. Saul was tall, handsome, looked the part. He had the appearance of royalty. But David was in the field, smelling like sheep. David was overlooked by his own father, but David had a heart after God. He closed the Bible gently. You were so busy looking for the crown, you missed the shepherd. I am so sorry, Benaiah, Tiraza said, the tears flowing freely now. I judged you, I looked down on you, I was arrogant and blind and... Benaiah offered her a handkerchief, clean, pressed, monogrammed. I forgive you, Tiraza. He waited until she met his eyes. But listen to me closely. Your value doesn't come from the status of the man beside you, and a man's value doesn't come from the cleanliness of his fingernails or the size of his bank account. Pause. It comes from his obedience to God. Tiraza took a sabbatical from her high-powered job. She joined the church's street ministry, the one that served the homeless under the bridge. 6 months. Tiraza in jeans and t-shirts, kneeling on concrete, washing the feet of a woman who hadn't showered in 3 weeks. Tiraza ladling soup into chipped bowls, learning the names of people she used to walk past without seeing. Tiraza giving away her gold Cartier watch to a single mother who needed to pawn it for rent. Tiraza laughing, genuinely laughing, with a man who told jokes from a wheelchair, who had nothing to offer her but joy. She saw Benaiah often. He didn't pursue her, he watched her. Watched her strip away the pride. One Saturday afternoon, Tiraza was scrubbing a large soup pot in the ministry kitchen. Sweating, hair a mess, tomato sauce on her cheek. She felt a presence behind her. You missed a spot, a deep voice said. Tiraza smiled. She turned around to face Benaiah. I'll get it, she said. I'm learning that the scrubbing is the most important part. Benaiah smiled, genuine, warm, reaching his eyes. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Tiraza's breath caught. Tiraza, he said, for 6 months, I have watched you build something far more beautiful than that cathedral. You've built a spirit of humility. He opened the box. Not a diamond ring. A simple silver lapel pin in the shape of a trowel, a builder's tool. I'm starting a new project, Benaya said. An orphanage in the city. I need a lead architect. Pause. But I don't need the woman who walked into the boardroom 6 months ago. I need the woman standing in front of me now, the one who isn't afraid to get her hands dirty. Tiraza took the pin. It meant more to her than anything she had ever owned. I would be honored, she said. Benaya's ears turned slightly pink. And Tiraza, he added, perhaps after we review the site plans I could take you to dinner. There's a burger place I like. It's not fancy, plastic seats, cash only. Tiraza laughed, a sound of pure joy. I love plastic seats.